So hello, Glen. I want to say thank you for joining this video interview and I appreciate the time you've taken out your day to come. How are you doing during this COVID times?
We're doing all right. Obviously, we have to work from home, but we just gotta live. Just gotta do what we gotta do.
Mhm. Okay, like me and you have, talked in the DMs. I'm the project manager at We Stop Hate Crime, and our main focus is to
Yeah.
raise awareness on knife crime. And we're doing this through different type of content. And video interviews is one as I really wanted to get the insights, the opinions from different people, from a member of the public. So once again, I appreciate the time you've taken out your day to come and speak with me. So
No
before we
problem.
dive right into the interview, I want you to introduce yourself, talk about who you are, your upbringing, and the things you like to do.
Well, I'm a 24-year-old kids behavioural assistant. So basically, what we do is just study the behavioural actions of kids to see what turns them into some of these people that you see now.
Yeah.
To help them keep sanity, to keep them safe, because a lot of them will, turn out to do bad stuff, and because they don't have like an older figure. So we're here to help them make right decisions, to build an environment for them where they can work. Obviously, in the future, to be able to find jobs without their behavioral problems coming into place.
Mm-hmm. All right, cool. Okay, so that's a good sum up of what you do. I guess we can dive
Yeah.
right straight into the interview. So the first question I have for you, Glenn, is knife crime a concern for you in your area? So the area that you live in, is there a
Yeah.
concern for you?
It's a very, very big concern because, well, we're based in Croydon. So I live in Croydon, right? And obviously, we all know the history of Croydon.
Yeah.
It's I can't fault that it is quite a dangerous area. Like even, I think it was last month, in the news, it was said about 11 stabbings or 11 cases, and for a while I thought it was doing okay, it was coming down, but now I feel like it's just coming back up again. And it's just a very big concern because a lot of the time it's normally teenagers or kids involved in this, profanity. And it's just really, really bad for the community, for just the area in general, because, we have to think about how we can stop this because, it's kids at the end of the day. And yeah, man, it's just very, very worrying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from the same place as you. I'm from Croydon as well. And I also heard the statistics as well of the 11 knife stabbings. I mean, it's crazy, especially among the youths. But yeah, this is why, myself and the team, we create a campaign to try and tackle these type of issues. But yeah, thank you for your answer. So the second question I have for you, Glenn, is why do you think knife crime occurs? Do you think it stems from drugs, self-protection, money, or popularity?
Well, what people seem to think the reason is because of, the music genre drill. Now, I honestly, from working with the kids that get involved in this stuff, and trying to help them get out of the lifestyle, I honestly beg to differ. I honestly think that it's because of the environment that they grew up in. For example, there was one person I was working with. He was at the age of 16, and he's already done so many things that you wouldn't, as adults, we wouldn't even think of doing. Involved in stabbings. He's been stabbed or whatever. And when he told me about his lifestyle or the way he grew up, he had no father figure. And his mom was the only person that could take care of him, but his mom was struggling a lot. And he had nowhere else to look to because his mom's never home, from a young age. From, I think he said around 10, he had to basically stay on his own because his mom had to do late shifts just so that they could survive. So he never had the luxuries as us. What we see is normal. For example, like a phone, a phone. He had to have like one of those small brick phones, especially in our day and age where, kids nowadays always have iPhones, have these big branded phones, clothing and all of that stuff. And he was basically an outcast. And, I feel like the reason why he got into, this violence was because there's no protection, there's no family around him, there's no older role model. You know what I mean? There's no one he looks up to. And a lot of the times when you go into gangs, there's a sense of family, there's a sense of love.
Yeah.
Because, even though gangs are a ruthless group, they involve themselves in a lot of bad activities, they do tend to, make sure that everyone is good. And they do take care of each other. You know what I mean? Hence why you always hear me and my bro doing this and chefing or whatever.
Yeah.
Because they're always together.
Yeah.
So he felt at home with them. And that's what I think it is. I think it's just, stuff going on at home.
Yeah.
In school or whatever. If you're getting bullied, that could also affect. So yeah, man, honestly, it's just the environment. I don't think it's to do with music, because if that was the case, a lot of people would have done, your typical rock or punk music, always talking about death and all that stuff. Then a lot of people would have committed suicide from that. So I honestly don't think it's to do with music.
Yeah, ultimately, I think I agree with you. It comes with your environment and what influences you, especially like you mentioned from home, as the example that you gave. And there is no father figure at home, there's instability within your household. And then what they tend to do is to go out in the streets and find that family, that solidarity amongst their friends. And most of the time, when you're with your friends, sometimes you can get into criminal activity. And what comes with criminal activity?
Exactly.
And what comes with criminal activity is you holding a knife, because you need to protect yourself out there in the streets. So I'm 100% agree with you on in terms of the environment. And like you said, the drill music. Me personally, I don't think the drill music has anything to do with it, because if we look at movies, we can say that there's a lot of crime-rated movies, but no one's talking about that. There's all, to me, drill.
Exactly.
To me, drill is like an outlet for these kids. It's ultimately just talking about the way they've come up, the way they've lived their life, and they're trying to monetize their music through, drill. So ultimately, drill, I think one of the main problems is the environment. But yeah, I appreciate and I think your answer was accurate. So for the third question I have for you, Glenn. So from a knife crime incident that you may have seen or heard, as an individual, how did that make you feel? So you could have been maybe on the bus and you probably scrolling through Twitter, or you may have received a notification that someone has been stabbed. How did that as a person make you feel?
Yeah, okay. If I'm being very, very, very honest, it's really heartbreaking, but sometimes it just feels like it just happens, because it's happened so many times now. It's like, yeah, this is normal.
Yeah.
Which is a very, very, very bad feeling.
Yeah.
Very, very bad feeling.
Yeah.
Because it just makes me feel like there's nothing you can do about it. There's no change happening. So, just let it happen, because what else are you gonna do? It's just gonna happen anyway. So it's just like, yeah, someone got stabbed today. That happens all the time anyway. But this is why I decided to do the profession I'm doing now, because I need to, take action now, because you could help one person and I could change
your whole life.
Exactly. It could change everything. Yeah. That one person that you might have helped could have stopped maybe even 10 different types of stabbings. Because, in gangs, if one person's involved, their whole group is involved.
Yeah.
No one is safe.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
Even like, you've seen how some gangs will even go out for family
Yeah.
that have nothing to do with it, nothing at all.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's just very, very, very,
Yeah.
depressing to see that, our society is just slowly losing itself, and over small stuff like, for example, postcodes and stuff. So yeah, man, it really hurts, but I need to get out of that mindset of feeling that it's just normal,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
actually helping out.
I agree with you. I agree with you. So we're coming to the penultimate question that I have for you, Glenn. So in the current area that you live in, so of course Croydon, how do you think knife crime affects people in the neighborhood? So you may have a next door neighbor, or you may have a grandma that lives 2 houses down, or you may have a friend that lives across the road. How do you think the knife crime in your area affects the neighborhood itself and the morale of the neighborhood?
Mm. So this is quite a hard question, because going back to what I said to the last question, that it feels normal.
Yeah.
I don't think, like, for example, the youth, I don't think they really care too much,
Yeah.
because I feel like they kind of enjoy the thrill.
Uh-huh.
Oh, someone got stabbed the other day. Oh my days, fam, do you man? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas for people in our age group or above, obviously, like, for example, there was one woman who, her son got affected by knife crime, got stabbed and died, and that woman, she's seen as crazy now, but she's just crying and mourning over her child.
Yeah.
And we even spoke to her to try and comfort her, and sometimes we have one of our teams to go check on her if she's okay,
Yeah.
because it affected her a lot, because she was the only mum. No, she was the only other person in the household. It was just her and her son. So to have the only thing, the only family you have taken away from you at such a young age,
Mm-hmm.
is very sad. So in terms of the oldest, for example, with me, I'm not sure if you had the same thing as well. Growing up, my parents were always, always overprotective, just because of the area we live in. So,
Yeah.
make sure when you're home from school, make sure you come back around 5. Don't go out too late. No parties, no nothing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it just makes parents worry about their children too much, which is not a bad thing. But
Yeah.
then children will then retaliate, because they feel like you're taking away their
Their
freedom.
privilege. Their
Hence
privilege.
why they decide, to sneak out and do all these other stuff. It's like a opposite. It's like magnets.
Yeah.
You take something away from someone, they're gonna try their hardest to try and get that back, or do what you told them not to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just a retaliation. So it affects, our area in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of hard to control it, because, at the end of the day, people are people. They need to do what they need to do. But when you not allowing them to do it because of, the crime, they don't see it as the crime bit. They just see that you're just tormenting them.
Yeah.
Just saying you just don't want me to go out and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it affects a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm. All right, good, great answer, Glenn. I appreciate that answer. I totally agree with you, especially with the younger generation. They don't really seem affected about it. They see the thrill of it. Where in contrast, the older generation, it affects them because it's their children that are getting affected. You know, being
Yeah.
It's their children that are being victims of knife crime. So, there's a big contrast between the younger generation and the older generation. But now we're coming up to the last question.
Yeah.
What do you think can be done to prevent knife crime among youths? So what do you think measures can be set in place that institutions can do, that governments can do to, prevent these knife crimes from occurring?
I think one thing, I think the government just needs to ease off the youth and these stereotypes, because, now even kids that don't even know what's going on will say, F the police,
Yeah.
these guys are, using the, I don't know how to say the word, but using words like, for example,
Yeah.
these pigs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Because, the government think it's just the youth. There's a lot of times where it's adults. For example, even in the coronavirus, a lot of the time people think, oh, it's the youth that are the reason why, we're still in lockdown, because they just want to go out partying all the time. But little do they know, in Manchester, which I don't think they even put on the news, there was a whole rally, people without masks and stuff, breaking down gates and all that stuff, and they were adults, rebellion. So the police need to do, not the police, I think the government in general just need to do a bit more research and, stop doing stereotypes as if it's just black kids doing it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other races involved in gang violence. It's not just,
Black kids.
Black children. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's one thing. And another thing is to be able to understand, I don't know how to explain, but to be able to understand our children more, because,
yeah,
because when you don't understand them, they just rebel so easily. And, their kids' tempers are very, very low when you're a child, because you always want to,
understanding the kids, like you were saying, understanding where they're coming from, their backgrounds, rather than just putting a stereotype on them, understanding why they feel like this, why do they need the feeling to carry a knife, why do they feel in danger when they go out the door. That's basically,
I feel like one more thing, sorry. I think it comes down to parents as well. Because, for example, now we're, London in general, the UK in general is a very diverse city, right? Country. Yeah. So, I feel like in terms of parents, some of their old ways of disciplining children should change now, because it's very old. It's not the same, like, for example, back home or the way it used to be back in the UK. I feel like they need to change the ways and adapt to the new modern way of dealing with children, because, the old stuff was very harsh, and I honestly feel like, the parents should just try their hardest to, to understand kids more.
Yeah.
And that's about it, to be honest.
I mean, thank you, Glenn. You gave me a lot of insight, gave me a lot of understanding, you gave me a lot of pure, accurate opinions that I personally think are accurate. This is, like I said at the start, we're creating this campaign in order to raise awareness of knife crime. And our main focus, like I said, our main focus is to, do what we can. Our main focus is to do what we can to try and save at least one child. So, like I said, thank you for what you've brought today. Keep going on with the work that you're doing with the youths, and I guess we can carry on our relationship.
Thank you very much.